So today we're going to talk about phonics and phonics specifically for adult students. I think for the majority of adult students, whether they are beginners or more advanced, I think when learning English, the main goal is effective communication for them. And I don't think they worry too much about, learning to maybe read a specific word or how to say a letter sound. So I think this is where the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, can be extremely handy for our adult students and for us as teachers when we are teaching them, the phonics and the basics of the language. So firstly, I wanted to start by just asking you, why do you think adult students should learn phonics?
All right, there are numerous reasons why adult learners should know phonics or the basics of phonics. Firstly, because a lot of them want to go abroad and study. And obviously, they might go to English-speaking countries like the UK or the USA, where English is the first language. So it is very important for them to feel confident in speaking English fluently. And at the same time, they need to communicate with their fellow peers or with their teachers. So it is essential for them to understand how, the basics work in terms of the IPA. So for example, if they don't know how to pronounce certain phonemes over others, a lot of confusion can occur, which at the end of the day will, demotivate them a lot more. So they might feel hindered to speak and have a normal conversation with someone that is a native English speaker. So I definitely think that it's a great way to enhance their English skills and to gain confidence to speak English fluently.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Definitely. I think those are great points. I think that is why, especially ESL adult students should start off with learning the basics of phonics and those letter sounds and, everything you mentioned. Because majority of them are just looking to be able to have that communication skill and to do so effectively. I think it's really important for them to learn phonics because it just helps to familiarize, words and sounds and blending those sounds together to make words. It helps with just improving their reading skills, which is needed, like you said, if they are traveling or if they want to communicate effectively. And then, of course, just for, like you mentioned, those overall communication skills in the English language. So I definitely think that is, key to using phonics with our adult students is just keeping in mind that that's kind of their end goal. They're not looking to nitpick on the English language, maybe some of them, but majority of them just want those communication skills at the end of the day. So, yeah, so moving on from that, I want to kind of ask you a bit about the IPA. Now, I know a lot of teachers might not have experience with using the IPA per se and maybe don't think about incorporating it in lessons. But what do you think might be an advantage of incorporating the IPA or the IPA charts into phonics lessons with our adult students?
All right, so firstly, it's very important for any type of students, whether they are beginners or intermediate or even advanced, and no matter what age they are at, it's important for the teacher to show them how to actually pronounce the sounds. So the mouth and tongue placements are extremely important. So I think that the IPA is a great advantage and it's a great tool to show our students exactly how to, place your mouth or your tongue when you are saying different sounds. Because like I said, now, a lot of confusion can occur. For example, if you show them a picture of a ship, but they will maybe pronounce it as sheep, if they're going to have a normal conversation with someone that is a native English speaker, they're not going to understand what is being said. And then once again, it will demotivate them. So I definitely think it's important for them to understand how to place your mouth and your tongue so that they can effectively know how to actually pronounce and utter those different sounds, correctly, which would mean that at the end of the day, they will know how to say words correctly and then sentences. Yeah. And you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think the IPA chart is a great tool to use for that. I think that it's also really great to use for a challenge. With teaching adult students, we kind of got to keep in mind that it needs to interest them. So teaching them how to use that IPA chart kind of sets that challenge to discover the pronunciation of sounds and words by themselves, that we don't have to kind of get them to repeat after us. We can, once they are familiar with it, we can set those tasks and challenges to kind of get them to start using it by themselves. And it's also just a great tool to have to refer back to when they, stop their English lessons or go on to kind of learn English by themselves. They'll always have that to refer back to, and they would know how to use it, so they can continuously practice pronunciation. And like you said, if they come across a word that they might not really know how to pronounce, they can use that and they can kind of decode it. So I think it's a very useful tool to implement into lessons, especially with adult students at the end of the day, and when teaching phonics in general.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because it's a lifelong tool that they can use. Like I said, whether they are, beginners or adults. I mean, I sometimes look at a word and I'm like, and how do I pronounce this? And then I use knowledge and I'm like, that's how you say it.
Definitely.
So, because you are always learning, and it's never too late to learn or too early to learn. So yes, definitely agree.
So lastly, I'm just curious to know, because I do, every teacher has their own way of doing things. So when teaching phonics to possibly, older students, maybe older teenagers and adult students, what is your go-to with phonics? What do you like to start with in your phonics lessons?
All right. So firstly, no matter, if they are young students, teenagers, or adults, it's important to always start with the basics. But how you introduce phonemes, as an example, will be different with a child or with an adult. So with children, I like to play songs or get them to sing the different sounds, or even say the sounds in funny, voices.
Yeah.
But with adults, I think it is important to obviously start at the, at the forefront, with the basics, and to say the sounds independently, because you want them to become autonomous learners at the end of the day. So basically, maybe to show them how to pronounce the sounds, and then they can maybe think of words that have those sounds. And then from there on, when they gain more, confidence, they can make sentences and then eventually start to read. So that's basically how I do it. And yourself?
Yeah, I think starting with those basics are very important. We need to, keep in mind that these students might not have been exposed to English at all. So starting with the basics is always a good idea. With my adult students, I like to incorporate that terminology because they are able to kind of comprehend better. I think it's interesting for them, and it might help them along the way to kind of know what a phoneme is, what a grapheme is, a trigraph, a digraph. All those phonics terminologies are always good to kind of know, and this could help them, as they go on their learning journey. I also
That's a good
like
point.
Yeah, I also like to incorporate some practical examples, possibly starting off very simple, getting them to identify sounds using that IPA chart as they learn. And then, challenge them a little bit, make some words with the sounds we've learned, set some homework tasks, just to kind of keep them involved and interested, and also challenge themselves a little bit. And that's something that's kind of different to teaching younger students phonics, where I feel it's more fun and repetitive work rather than kind of, challenging them to do it by themselves at that point. Yeah, so that's
feel some of your ideas. Excellent. I like that.
cool. So we would like to know from you if you've had any experience using the IPA teaching adult students, or if you've had any experience teaching adult students phonics. So please let us know in the comment section down below. We'd love to read your experiences and kind of share, ideas amongst all of us. So please remember to subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next video.
Happy teaching.
Become a TEFL expert with IQTEFL. Go to our website at www.iqtefl.com to find out more.